There are heartbreaks, and then there are crucifixions. Some women don't just walk away, they walk over you, wearing heels made of your vulnerability. But what if I told you that her betrayal isn't your burial, but your baptism? What if the tears you cried last night are the ink for a story of strength tomorrow? This isn't a speech about bitterness. This is a sermon for the broken, a lesson for the lost. If you've ever given your all and were left empty, if you've ever begged in silence while pretending to be strong, then stay, because tonight we're not just healing, we're rising. We're learning how to break the ego of the one who broke us, not with hate, but with our rebirth. The sting of rejection is real. It burns like betrayal wrapped in silence. You feel it first in the chest, a slow tightening as though the air around you has been stripped of forgiveness. Your lungs work, but somehow you can't breathe. You replay the last words she said, the coldness in her voice, the way she no longer looked at you like home. You reach for reasons, clawing at fragments of moments that once felt so sure, so permanent. You wonder if you misread everything or if you simply weren't enough to be held, to be kept, to be chosen. And that thought is the one that cuts deepest. Not enough. It's not her absence that tears you down. It's what her leaving whispers in your head. The mirror becomes an enemy. Silence turns hostile. You start to question your worth, your power, your beauty, your being. You wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in questions. Did she ever love you? Was any of it real? Did she already choose someone else before she let go of you? Rejection doesn't just end a relationship. It wages war on identity. It forces you to look in the ruins of what was and dig for meaning in what remains. The worst part is that no one sees your bleeding. You move through the world with the same face, the same voice, but your heart is walking barefoot on broken glass. She's gone. Maybe laughing, maybe living, while you are here, aching in the ghost of what you thought was forever. But the sting, however sharp, is not final. There is something sacred about surviving what you thought would destroy you. Something divine about waking up on day 12 after the heartbreak and realizing your breath has returned to you, slowly but surely. The first laugh that slips out of your mouth without effort feels like a revolution. The first night you sleep without dreaming of her is a quiet miracle. Healing does not scream, it whispers. It arrives not all at once, but in fragments. A smile from a stranger, a song that no longer reminds you of her, a day you go without checking if she viewed your story. You begin to see rejection not as the end of your worth, but as the beginning of your becoming. When she left, she took a version of you that had placed your value in her hands. She left with the version of you that asked to be loved rather than expected it. And that version needed to go, not because you were unworthy, but because you had forgotten that your worth was never hers to decide. You don't heal by pretending you're not hurt. You heal by honoring the pain without letting it define you. Feel every ounce of that sting. Let it burn through your skin. Let it crack open the illusion that she was the sun. Because now you begin to realize you were the light all along. She didn't walk away from something small. She lost something whole. The sting of rejection softens when you start building again. Not just externally, not the gym body, not the new wardrobe, not the curated life on social media that screams, "Look how well I'm doing without you." No, the real building begins on the inside, where your voice begins to sound like love again, where your thoughts speak kindly, where you reclaim the parts of yourself you gave away too easily, too soon. And if she comes back, as many do when they see what they lost, you won't be the same. Not out of spite, but evolution. You will look her in the eyes and feel nothing pressing against your ribs. No ache, no longing, just clarity. She was a chapter, not the whole book. A lesson, not your definition. She broke your heart, yes, but not your spirit. There is freedom in rejection, strange as it sounds. Because once you've been left by someone you thought you couldn't live without, and lived, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the idea that your worth is negotiable, to the lie that love means losing yourself, to the belief that someone's goodbye can steal your purpose. You will outgrow the sting, not by force, but by grace. One day, her name won't taste bitter. One day, you won't remember the anniversary of her absence. One day, you'll hear a song, and instead of wincing, you'll just hum along. The sting of rejection is real, but it is not your ending. It is your echo, the last breath of an old you before the new you learned to rise. She walked away, and it felt like the world dimmed. The door didn't just close, it echoed. It rang through your bones, through your memories, through your sense of self. And for a moment, maybe for many moments, you believed the lie. The lie that her leaving meant something was wrong with you, that if you had been stronger, softer, more fun, less emotional, more this or less that, maybe she would have stayed. You turn inward, not in reflection, but in punishment, looking for the flaw in you that made her stop seeing your worth. But here is the quiet truth that doesn't scream loud enough in the chaos of heartbreak. You are not less because she left. Her leaving is not a judgment on your value. It is not a divine declaration that you failed to be enough. It is not proof that your love wasn't worthy or your presence too heavy. She left. That's all. And it says far more about her capacity than it does about your essence. People don't always leave because something is wrong. Sometimes they leave because they are not equipped to carry the weight of a real heart. Sometimes they leave because they cannot handle your depth, your honesty, your clarity. And instead of rising to meet you, they run. You didn't lose value the day she walked out. You didn't suddenly become someone unlovable. That's the trick of the heart. It takes love's absence and mistakes it for evidence that love was never there. But she did love you, maybe just not in the way you needed. Or maybe she didn't know how. That's not your fault. You can offer someone your whole soul on a silver platter, and if they don't know how to receive it, they'll walk away hungry. That is not a reflection of the meal. It is a reflection of their appetite. You are still the same person who stayed up late making her laugh. You are still the one who remembered her favorite songs, who listened when she whispered her fears, who showed up when it was inconvenient. Her walking away doesn't erase the beauty of what you gave. Love isn't validated by being returned. It's validated by the heart it came from. And your heart, even now, is not broken. It is brave. It dared. It tried. It opened. That matters. The danger of heartbreak is that it doesn't just end a relationship. It puts your self-image on trial. It makes you forget that you were whole before she arrived. It makes you believe that her approval was the mirror that told you who you are. But real self-worth is not granted. It is remembered. And you have to remember now, more than ever, that no one else gets to write your value into existence. No one else gets to walk away with your sense of identity in their pocket. She left, let her leave, but don't go with her. Don't go shrinking in her absence. Don't go questioning every part of yourself that once stood strong. There are parts of you that she never understood, never cherished, never even noticed, and that does not make those parts less sacred. You do not become less radiant because someone failed to see your light. You do not become less powerful because someone was intimidated by your truth. You are not less worthy because someone stopped choosing you. Sometimes people leave, not because you were too much, but because they weren't ready to meet someone like you. And that's okay. Everyone is on their own path, but don't let their exit make you abandon your own. You are not here to be chosen by everyone. You are here to be true. And sometimes truth stands alone before it's embraced. You were not loved less because she left. In fact, what you gave was so real, it scared her. It asked her to show up. It asked her to grow. And maybe she wasn't ready for that kind of honesty. Maybe she needed something easier, something more forgettable. That's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of what she was prepared to face. Let her go, but hold on to yourself, because there will come a day when you no longer wonder what you lacked. There will come a time when you will laugh freely again, when your voice will return without effort, when love, real love, will find you, and this time it will stay. Not because you changed who you are, not because you became more palatable, but because someone finally came who could recognize your value without being told. Someone who will not flinch when faced with your fire, but who will sit with it and warm their hands. So breathe deep, stand tall, let the pain rise and pass like a wave, but know this in your bones: you are not less because she left. You are still everything you were and more. Ego is a strange thing. It can be your shield or your shackle. After she leaves, after the silence stretches long and heavy, after the messages go unanswered and the memories hit you like glass in the chest, it's your ego that screams first, not your heart, not your soul, your ego. It's the part of you that says, "How dare she?" It's the part that wants to win, to be right, to be the one remembered, the one regretted. Your ego doesn't want her back. Your ego wants her to suffer, to see what she lost, to crawl back and say you mattered more than she knew. That's the wound talking, the bruise that wasn't born from love, but from pride. And you listen to it because it sounds powerful. You listen to it because pain disguised as pride feels strong. But in truth, it isn't strength, it's survival, it's armor. Your ego is trying to protect what's left of you. After all, when someone leaves you, they don't just walk away with your memories. They walk away with the version of yourself you became around them. And when that version no longer has a home, your ego builds one out of defense. That defense tells you not to feel too deeply, not to mourn too long, not to look like the one who cared more. You convince yourself you didn't lose much, that she wasn't even that special. You downplay what it was because it hurts too much to admit how much it meant. That's ego too. It whispers lies that look like protection, but ego unexamined becomes a trap. It keeps you from grieving properly. It keeps you from healing honestly. It keeps you stuck in the performance of strength instead of the reality of recovery. But here's the paradox. Ego is also what saves you. Not the loud ego, the one that lashes out, the one that posts carefully curated images meant to spark jealousy. Not the reactive ego, but the quiet one, the dignified one. The ego that, after the crying stops, lifts your chin and says, "You are still whole." The ego that tells you, "You deserve to be chosen." The one that doesn't seek revenge, but instead rebuilds. That ego is sacred. That's the ego that reminds you of who you are, not because someone loves you, but because you remember it yourself. There is a moment, somewhere deep in the aftermath of heartbreak, where ego becomes medicine, when the sorrow settles, when the obsession with her next move dissolves. Ego speaks softly. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it says, "Get up," not for her, not to be seen, but for yourself. Because somewhere in that rupture, you forgot that your value isn't proven by who stays, it's proven by who you remain after they leave. That's the ego you need, the kind that reclaims, not retaliates. Because healing isn't about proving her wrong. Healing isn't about being the one who moves on faster, who gets more likes, who looks better in solitude. That's illusion. Healing is about moving from ego's defense into ego's truth. It's about walking into a room full of reminders and not crumbling. It's about hearing her name and not flinching. It's about no longer needing closure because you've given it to yourself. Let your ego serve you, not trap you. Let it be the spark that says, I won't chase what walked away, but not the wall that says, I'll never love again. Let it be the boundary, not the prison. You're allowed to want to be seen, to be remembered, to be missed. That's human, but you mustn't let those wants define your worth. Because here's the truth you already know deep down. If she could not see your value, her eyes were not meant for you. Let that sink in. Your ego, when it matures, doesn't want revenge. It wants resurrection. It wants to rise, not rage. It wants to grow, not gloat. The real strength is in standing tall, not to be noticed, but because kneeling is no longer your posture. The real power is in choosing peace over pettiness, in being able to say, she hurt me, but she doesn't own me. Let the pain be what it was. Don't rewrite the story to protect your pride. Feel the sting, the shame, the longing, but then let ego walk you through it, not around it. You don't need to erase the memories. You don't need to pretend she didn't matter, but you do need to matter to yourself more than she ever did. There's a version of ego that destroys, but there's also a version that rebuilds. And when the dust settles, you'll know the difference. Because the ego that heals doesn't make you louder, it makes you calmer. It doesn't demand attention, it invites stillness. It doesn't prove anything, it simply knows. And that's when you'll understand. Ego may have hurt you at first, but it's also what helped you survive. There is something unsettling about silence after heartbreak. It's not empty, it's deafening. When someone you loved leaves, your first instinct is to fill that silence. You want to speak, shout, explain, accuse, maybe even beg. You want to write long messages she'll never answer. You want to say, look what you did to me, or you'll regret this one day. You want her to know she broke something real, that what she walked away from was not easily replaced. But silence? Silence asks you to do something much harder. It asks you to say nothing. And yet, silence can scream in a language that words never could. It does not beg. It does not chase. It does not throw a tantrum. It simply exists with power and grace. Silence becomes the mirror you hold up to her absence, reflecting back everything she thought you'd never survive. While vengeance is loud and immediate, silence is slow and devastating. It takes its time. It doesn't rush to be understood. It lets your healing speak on your behalf. There is strength in choosing not to respond. When someone betrays you, mocks your love, or carelessly walks away, the urge to retaliate can feel righteous. But what is vengeance, really? It's a mask. It's a cry from a wound that hasn't been tended to. Vengeance says, I need you to hurt so I can feel better. But silence? Silence says, I already am better, and I don't need your attention to prove it. It takes courage to sit with silence. It takes maturity to let go of the need to be right, to be heard, to be vindicated. When you choose silence, you are not giving up. You are reclaiming your peace. You are refusing to let someone else's actions dictate your emotional reaction. And when she looks back, if she ever does, the silence you gave her will speak louder than any message you could have sent, because she will hear what isn't said. She will feel the weight of what used to be and the absence of your voice as a loss she wasn't ready for. Revenge can feed the ego, but silence feeds the soul. It allows space for reflection. It turns the focus inward instead of outward. You begin to heal not because someone came back and made it right, but because you stopped bleeding for someone who never intended to stay. Silence allows you to let go, not with bitterness, but with dignity. It teaches you to walk away without slamming the door. It teaches you that walking quietly is sometimes the loudest declaration of self-respect. When you don't answer her last message, when you stop checking if she saw your story, when you no longer reach out just to feel her presence. You shift the energy, not in a manipulative way, but in a liberating one. You tell the universe, I choose myself. You no longer need the closure she never gave. You create your own. And that silence, that choice to say nothing, it becomes your revolution. There will be moments when the silence feels unbearable, moments when your chest aches from all the things you didn't say. But know this, just because something is unsaid doesn't mean it's unnoticed. Your stillness will echo louder than any scream. The absence of your voice in her life will become its own kind of message, one that says, I don't need to prove anything to you anymore. One that says, you don't get to occupy my peace. Eventually, if she ever looks back, she won't remember the words you didn't say. She'll remember the way you disappeared with grace. She'll remember how you didn't fight for a place in her life once she made it clear there wasn't room for you. She'll remember that after the storm, you didn't throw stones. You built silence into strength. And maybe one day, in her quiet moments, she'll wonder how someone she thought she knew became so untouchable. She'll wonder why the sound of nothing has become the loudest reminder of everything she lost. Because silence has a way of growing. It fills rooms, it stretches across time, and it does not beg for understanding. It just is. Silence is not weakness. It's not surrender. It is restraint, wisdom, and power all woven into one. And when you stop trying to control how she sees you, how she remembers you, or whether she even cares, you win. Not because she knows what she lost, but because you know what you found, yourself, whole, quiet, undisturbed, and that soundless strength, it's louder than anything vengeance could ever say. Redemption doesn't come wrapped in apologies from others. It doesn't arrive when someone finally admits they were wrong. It isn't earned through their regret or their longing. Redemption is not found in her return. It is found in your reclamation, when you decide to stop handing your power to people who never knew what to do with it. When you stop waiting for someone else to come back and fix the damage they caused. When you rise, not because they ask for forgiveness, but because you are done living beneath your own worth. You don't need her to say she was wrong for you to know you were right to love. You don't need her to validate the pain she caused for the healing to begin. You don't even need her to remember you in order to remember yourself. What you need is to recognize that every time you lower your voice, shrink your needs, or wait in silence hoping she'll realize what she lost, you give away pieces of your power. Slowly, quietly, you become a shadow of yourself, trying to stay visible in someone else's story. But you were never meant to be a shadow. You were meant to be fire. The truth is, she may never understand what she did. She may never see the full weight of your love or how carelessly she held it. She may never apologize, and that has to be okay. Not because it is okay, but because you cannot build your freedom on someone else's accountability. You cannot tie your peace to her evolution. Redemption doesn't live there. It lives inside the moment you realize your power was never lost, it was just forgotten. And that forgetting, that's what heartbreak does. It tricks you into believing you were discarded because you were unworthy. It blinds you to your own brilliance because someone failed to see it. But not being chosen doesn't mean you are unworthy. It means someone wasn't capable of choosing what was real. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to remember who you were before you were hurt, and then to become even more. That's how you reclaim your power. You do it when you stop checking for her updates, when you unfollow not out of bitterness but out of peace, when you stop rehearsing the what-ifs and start honoring the what-is, when you choose not to answer the late-night text, not because you hate her, but because you finally love yourself more. You reclaim your power in the quiet decisions, the ones no one sees but you. when you show up for yourself in ways she never did, when you rewrite the narrative that says her love defined you. It didn't. It shaped you maybe. It changed you. But you get to decide what you do with that change. There will be moments when you falter, moments when the memory of her feels like gravity pulling you backward. That's normal. Healing is not a straight line, it's a spiral. You will pass through the same pain again and again until you learn to greet it without surrendering to it, until you learn that missing her doesn't mean you want her back. It just means something mattered, and that's okay. What matters more now is who you are becoming. You are not just someone who was left. You are someone who lived through it, who stood up after it, who looked in the mirror and saw the cracks, then chose to shine anyway. That's power. Not pretending you're unbothered, not faking strength, but standing in your truth, even when it trembles. Saying, yes, I was broken and I built myself back. Redemption isn't flashy. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes it looks like laughing without guilt. Sometimes it looks like setting boundaries with people who once knew every version of your softness. And sometimes, maybe the hardest of all, it looks like forgiving yourself for staying too long, for loving too hard, for believing too deeply. Not because you were wrong to love, but because you forgot your love deserved to be held, not mishandled. You were never too much. You were never asking for too much. You were simply offering more than someone was ready to receive. Don't let that dim you. Don't let that harden you. Let it refine you. Let it make you stronger in spirit, softer in soul, and wiser in your giving. Redemption is not about being seen. It's about seeing yourself fully, without shame, without the need to be saved. You don't need her to come back to feel whole again. You only need to come back to yourself. That is where your power lives, and that is where your redemption begins. She thought leaving would leave you shattered, but your silence built cathedrals. Your pain painted masterpieces. And when she comes back, hoping to find you in the same ruin she left you in, let her meet your echo, calm, whole, divine. Don't chase, don't curse, don't crawl, just rise, and let your elevation remind her that her ego is not God. Because when she broke your heart, you broke her power.